Hello, this is clip number 4 of session number 2. And in this clip, we are going to discuss the requirements culture. So the requirement culture is very important aspect. You may experience issues in gaining agreement from some of the developers to participate in this requirement development process. Business analyst, BA, may experience a clash between developers who are seeking detailed inputs, maybe for an accounting system, if you want to have some inputs from the accounting team, or maybe IT managers who simply wanted to brainstorm the requirements without using any specific elicitation techniques. So there can be clashes between all these groups who are going to give you some inputs. So there can be some challenges that can arise when trying to engage the BAs or the developers and the customers and all the other stakeholders in a collaborative requirement partnership. Now, cultural clashes in terms of taking the requirements, the clashes, they frequently arise when teams are working on requirement gathering process or requirement management process. Are those who recognize the many risks associated with trying to develop software based on communicated requirements. And then there are those who think requirements are unnecessary. So there will be two groups. One group who thinks that if I don't give specific requirements, all the requirements, complete requirements, then there is a risk. And there is a group who thinks like requirements are not that necessary. It is task of BA or developer to understand the requirement. So it can be tough to gain business side cooperation, you can say, collaboration, cooperation on projects like legacy system replacement. If users see this as unrelated to their own business problems, so they'll not invest time in this process. So understanding why people resist participating in requirements development is the first step to being able to address that problem. So you have to understand why they are not participating in this requirement development process. So it's possible that the people who are resisting, the resistors, haven't been exposed to solid requirements practices in their past projects. So that is a possibility. Or they might have suffered from poor implementation of requirements processes, perhaps working on a project that produced a large or incomplete or maybe ignored a kind of requirement specification. That is a possibility again. So the resistors don't understand and appreciate the value of those practices when performed effectively. They might not realize the price, the cost they have paid for having worked in a casual and unstructured environment in the past, in the recent projects. That price mostly shows up an unexpected rework, because if the requirements are not clear, a rework is going to happen. That leads to late days and poor software quality. Such rework becomes part of the daily activities of the project participants, so they don't recognize it as a serious inefficiency. So if you are trying to get developers, managers, customers, all of them on board, make sure everyone understands the importance of requirements. Everyone understands that the organization and its customers must experience or must participate this requirement process. Developers are stakeholders in the project, but sometimes their input is not solicited and they become the victims of the requirements that are kind of forced on them. So therefore, they benefit from providing input that will make the requirement documentation as useful and meaningful as possible. Developers can do frequent reviews of requirements as they are evolving. That way, they know what is going to come, what is coming, and can spot the areas that need more clarity. Now, developers can offer suggestions no one else might have thought about, and it is an easier way to do certain things. So you have to give that freedom to developers. Quality assurance staff and testers are also valuable contributors to the excellent requirements. So instead of waiting until later in the project, in the late phase of the project, you try to engage these people in the iterative review of the requirements from the early stages. That is the best way. Now they are likely to find many problems, many ambiguities, conflicts, and concerns with the requirements as they are developing their test cases and scenarios from the given requirements. So testers can also provide input on specifying different types of quality attributes and requirements related to quality attributes. Resistance to process or cultural change can indicate kind of fear or uncertainty or lack of knowledge, because if you are developing some system, there can be a kind of insecurity in people's mind that is this system is going to replace my job. So generally that kind of fear or insecurity, uncertainty can be there in that process, and because of which they are resisting this change. So if you can recognize the source of resistance, root cause analysis, then you can confront these problems with a kind of reassurance or clarification, or you can give some kind of education to them, telling them the benefits of this change. You need to show people how the patient not only is in their personal interest or a kind of personal benefit, but also will lead to collectively better results for the organization. The organization's leadership must understand the need for the organization to have effective business analysis and requirement engineering capabilities, and consider this as a strategic core competency. So a lot of responsibility is also with the organization's leadership. Now, there can be hundreds of decisions which you have to make on software projects. So often they are on the critical path to being able to move ahead. So you might need to resolve some conflict, or you have to accept or reject a proposed change, or you have to approve a set of requirements for a specific release. All these situations may come. Early in your project, you have to determine who the requirement decision makers are and what kind of decisions they will take, and that means how they are going to make the decisions. So there is no single correct answer as to who should make all these key decisions. It depends on the situation. In some cases it depends on the company also and organization structure also. In some cases the decision is taken by a single point of contact, which is project manager or business analyst. In some cases, the decision is taken by the collaborative team or a team of few stakeholders from customer side and development side. In some cases, the decision is taken completely by the management of the organization. So there is no single correct answer that who is this key decision maker. But generally, a small group representing all the key areas such as management, customers, business analysis, development, marketing, testing. So a small group representing all these key areas generally works best. So this group should act as a decision maker. Now you can name this group as Change Control Board, CCB, which serves as the decision makers for proposed requirement changes. So generally in industry, such group is called as Change Control Board, CCB. Now the decision maker by its decision leader and to select a decision rule which describes how they will arrive at their decisions. So there are numerous decision rules to choose from. The decision leader makes the choice either with or without discussion with others. That can be one of the possibility. So the group votes and the majority rules. So if there are 10 members, so if for any rule, for any decision, if more than 5 votes are there, that decision is upheld. The group votes, but the result must be unanimous to approve the decision. So even if one person from that group is against that change, that request, then we have to have another round of discussion. So voting is there, but still the result has to be unanimous. So this is second kind of possibility. So in one possibility, You either go by the democratic way, just go for voting, and whoever have the majority of the votes, that will be accepted. So if the majority of vote is for accepting the change, accept the change and go for development. If the majority of votes is for rejecting the change, take the change and go for development. Simple. But in second scenario, even if voting is there, still you can decide that the decision has to be unanimous. So that means even if there are a couple of members who are voting against the change, you have to have another round of discussion and you have to make them understand why this change is necessary and something like that. Now the another scenario can be the group discusses and negotiates to reach a consensus. So everyone can live with the decision and commits to supporting it. So that is the next logical step. So after voting, if you find there are a couple of members who are against the majority of the votes, you can have the discussion, you can have the negotiation, and you can reach the consensus. The decision leader delegates authority for making the decision to one individual. That is another scenario. Because the change control board is a kind of group of representatives of different groups. Like there is one representative from the customer side, there is one representative from the BA side, there is one representative from the management side. So it is not necessary and practically possible also that for every decision all of them should be on same page or all of them should about that change. So in certain cases, the decision leader can delegate the authority for making that decision to an individual who is kind of domain expert for that change. Finally, the group reaches a decision, but some individuals have veto authority over that decision. That generally that veto is with management. So in some cases, you may have some discussions and you may have voting, but finally, if management decides that yes, we have to go ahead with this change, even if there is some different kind of decision in the group, you have to follow the management decision. So it may happen that in some cases, some individual can have the veto power. So there is no globally correct or appropriate decision rule method. All of these are possibilities and one of them will be followed in all the companies. A single decision rule won't work in every situation. So the group must establish guidelines so they know when to use a vote or when to go for discussions, when to go for consensus, when to delegate and so on. Now, reaching agreement on the requirements for the product to be built or for a specific portion of it is at the core of the customer development partnership. Now, multiple parties are involved in this agreement. So customers, developers, testers, and management. These are the four key members or key parties to this agreement. For customers, customers agree that requirements addresses their needs. For developers, they agree that they understand the requirements and the requirements are feasible. For that, the requirements are verifiable. And for management, they agree that the requirements will achieve their business objectives. Many organizations use the act of signing off on the requirements as the mark of stakeholder approval. So there can be a signing off function also, a small function where all key representatives of all the parties are present and a common document will be signed by all these representatives. So it is a signing off process. So all participants in the requirements approval process should know exactly what to sign off. The problem is with the development manager who views sign off as a way to freeze the requirements. Because for the development manager, once this document is signed off, that means it is a green signal to go ahead with development process and further phases of development life cycle. Whenever a change request comes along, in that case, after signing the document, if the change request comes along, he can protest and can say that as the requirements have been signed off, that is what we are going to build. So again, if you are making this or if you are suggesting this change, then it will cost. That change will also have some cost with it. If you wanted something else, what project manager can say, if you wanted something else, you should have said so in the beginning itself. So the participants have to agree on precisely what they are saying with their signatures. So what is important? The important thing is, don't use sign off as a weapon. You have to treat it as a milestone in your development life cycle. It's a milestone with a clear and shared understanding of the activities that lead to sign off and its implication for the future changes. If the decision maker don't need to read every word of the requirements, then you may have to select a communication technique such as slide presentation that summarizes the essential elements and facilitates for reaching agreement quickly. Some method has to be evolved. More important than this sign off is the concept of establishing a baseline of the requirements or the requirement agreement, which is a snapshot of it at a given point of time. So baselining the requirement agreement is an important concept in this. A requirement baseline, it is a set of requirements that has been reviewed and agreed upon and serves as the basis for further development. So that is the minimum level of acceptance, you can say. That's why it is called as a baseline. Whether your team uses a formal sign-off process or some other means of reaching for the agreement on the requirements, the subtext of that agreement should read something like this, which I have mentioned on this slide also, that I agree that this set of requirements represents the best understanding of the requirements for the next portion of this project, and the solution described will meet our needs as we understand them today. Fair and simple. So if you agree to make future changes based on the given baseline through the project's defined change process, then it is possible. So you realize that changes might require to renegotiate cost, resources, schedule, and other commitments. Now, some organizations put text like this right on the signature page. So the requirement approvals know exactly what sign off means in their world. After the decision makers define a baseline, the business analyst, the BA should place the requirements under the change control process, which you must have defined with the change control board. So this allows the team to modify scope whenever necessary in a controlled way that includes analyzing the impact of each proposed change on the schedule and other success factors. Now, the important question in all this discussion, or one can say the logical question one can ask, is what if you don't reach to an agreement? Even after following all this process and methods and structured communication and everything, for a specific change request, if you don't reach to an agreement, that change control board or all the stakeholders don't reach to an agreement, then what to do? So it can be hard to achieve sign off from all the relevant stakeholders. If there is no agreement, then it is very hard to achieve the sign off on the final document from all the relevant stakeholders. So the barriers include logistics, busy schedules, and people who are reluctant to commit and be held accountable later, or just they don't want to go ahead with this change. All these barriers may come in the picture. So if stakeholders are afraid they won't be able to make changes after they approve the requirement, might drag their feet on the approval. So thinking about this, they may be hesitant to sign that document. So many times an email message can be like, even you can have these kind of emails in your inbox, like, if you don't reply by next Friday, your changes and or sign off, I'm going to assume you are agreeing on these requirements. Full stop. So if you don't reply by Friday, I am considering it as your approval. Simple words. Now that is one option, but it risks strengthening the relationship with those stakeholders for whom you have just assumed a silent approval, and it should not be done. Try to understand why they don't feel comfortable with the sign off and address that problem directly. In such a situation, you are better off moving forward with the assumption that you don't have approval from few of the stakeholders. Document the fact that certain stakeholders don't sign off on the requirements, along with the likely impact of some of the requirements being missing or wrong. So follow up with these people as part of risk management, and in a positive manner mention that you recognize that they have not yet approved the requirements, but that the project is still moving forward with those requirements as a baseline so as to not delay the progress. So let them know that if they want to change their decision, there is a process in the place, and they can follow that process. Now, in case of agile projects do not include a formal sign-off action because it's a complicated process. It's not a single phase in the development lifecycle. Agile project will have requirement discussions in every cycle, in every iteration. So it does not include a formal sign-off action. Agile projects generally maintain requirements in the form of kind of user stories in a product backlog. So the product owner and the team, they can reach to agreement on what will be developed in the next iteration in a planning session. The set of stories is chosen based on the priority and the team's productivity. After that set has been established and agreed on or agreed to, then the stories contained in the iteration are frozen. Requested changes that come in can be considered for future iterations, but not for the current iterations. There is no attempt on an agile project to achieve stakeholder approval on the full scope of requirements for the project upfront. That is not possible in agile. That is the base concept of agile, that we divide this requirement gatheration process in multiple iterations to minimize the expectation gap, basically. So in agile projects, the full set of functionality is defined or identified over time in multiple iterations, although the vision and other business requirements, key business requirements do need to be established upfront at the beginning only. So commonly on agile projects, the product owner publicly accepts or rejects the requirements for an iteration, which consists of a set of stories and their accompanying acceptance criteria and acceptance tests. So this is all about clip number 4, where we have discussed the requirement culture, how different cultures can be there in an organization. Whenever we say requirement, how different stakeholders will react to the requirement process, who are the decision makers, how it is important to reach or reaching agreement on the requirements, what to do if you don't reach to an agreement, and how this culture is handled in agile projects. So this is all we have discussed in clip number 4.